Get away from her, you bitch!
Oh, shut up, you tart!
Who disrupts my coronation? Get to the chopper!
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another fun-filled episode of Hun, Your Geek is Showing. Stepping in for the random man at the last moment, joining me, that bitch Calista Valentine, for another episode, is, of course, the mouth of the South West Derbyshire, Mr. Jimmy Lee Clifford. How are you doing, honey?
I could be better. I could be worse. As I just discussed, the horrors persist, but I remain.
Yes. You're filling in for the random man who unfortunately had to message me yesterday morning to let me know the random man has a random bug. And now he's having random moments where he's doing a very good impression of Mount Vesuvius at either end. So do with that.
As Deadpool says, wear the brown pants.
Yes, in the words of Deadpool, this guy had the right idea. He wore the brown trousers. Yes. So, moving swiftly on with today's episode, we're going to jump straight into the shoutouts. Going over to last week's episode of what's my train of thought?
Geeky, shall we?
We covered CW's Arrow and touched upon the Arrowverse just a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, the way same way Trump touches upon a lot of people, but
yes, well.
But yes, we start with the man, the myth, the beard, the ginger one, Mr. JK, the ginger ninja JK. I will get my words right. I'm having a bad day. I do apologize, folks. I'm not doing this on purpose. It's just bad day. Anyway, g'day, and yes, I did jump the gun a bit, but nah. What you been watching? The Walking Dead again. Wouldn't that be The Walking Dead if you're watching it again? Or The Walking Dead?
Or the Super Walking Dead?
The Power Walking Dead?
The Power Walking Dead, I like that one.
Brain. Yeah, I just...
Badly timed.
Well, you and your wife would know all too well about that one. Anyway, speaking of Cobra Kai, there may not be a new season, but they're making a new The Karate Kid movie, with Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan. Now, that I don't know about that, because from what I've seen of the trailers, and I'm not 100% certain of this,
yes,
it looks like it's basically a direct sequel to that original first Karate Kid film, and then the remake that Jackie Chan did a few years back. I think it's following on from those two, forgetting the events of the other films and Cobra Kai. But again,
we don't know.
I've only seen a brief trailer of it, and it doesn't really give too much story information of whether this is set after the events of Cobra Kai, whether it's an alternate time. We don't know at this point. I don't know at this point. I've not done my research, and I probably should have done after reading this comment. But
I've watched the trailer. I try to follow, because I usually try and follow things up if I can. And just, especially these days, Tony gets bitten that many times. Sorry, Tony, but you do. You get bitten by them, and it's easy to do as well, man.
The AI
yes. Yeah, you look at something. Well, that's awesome, and then it turns out, I haven't been able to find much on it.
But in regards to that, it's one of those wait and see kind of moments. Once we know more about it, we may cover it on an episode. It depends when that news comes out. That's to come later in the series. We'll talk about that later, but never mind. Anyway, carry on the fuck on. One of the biggest ones of the man or the mask question, apart from Batman, is Superman. He was born Kal-El, and Clark Kent is the assumed identity. Keen to hear your thoughts on that one. Right. To be honest, I kind of default to if you've seen Kill Bill, especially Volume 2, you will know what I'm talking about here, viewers. For me, the Kill Bill, the actual speech that Bill makes about Superman at the end of Kill Bill Volume 2, for me, is my answer for this question here, JK, is that Clark Kent is Superman's secret identity, but he is also his critique on humanity. Because you look at Clark Kent compared to Superman, Superman will stand down any threat, large or small, no matter how big or world-shattering it may be. Superman is always that symbol of hope with the S and the flowing cape and slick back hair. But Clark Kent, he's weak. He stutters his words. He fumbles. He's cowardly. He'd run away from danger. Just, okay, we know in the comic books he's running away to change into Superman. But to an outside perspective, Clark Kent's the first motherfucker to run away. He's the biggest coward going. He's the first one to disappear at the sign of danger. So from an outside perspective, people who don't know that he's Superman just see Clark Kent as a coward. And that, for me, is Superman's view of humanity, that to blend in with us, he has to be all these imperfect, weak things to blend in. And I think that says quite a lot about the character. But again, I'm just kind of paraphrasing what was said at the end of Kill Bill Volume 2. And for me, when I first heard that speech, the first time I saw that film, I was lucky enough to see the first part on DVD, but the second part in the cinema. It was one of those date night kind of things back in the day. And the first time I heard that speech, I just went, yes, yeah, Superman. Clark Kent is Superman's critique of humanity. That is the way he views us, as weak, fumbling, cowardly creatures that need to be protected. That's why he is Superman. So I hope that answers your question, JK. Right, moving on. Arrow, we hardly knew you. Great series to start with, and even though the majority of the series, it maintained an overall very good quality. Yes, but if you look at the rating, season 6 was actually its lowest rated season at like 62%, which the previous season and the season after it were both in the high 80s. So that was a considerable drop off for season 6. A lot of people just noped out at season 6, which is a shame. But getting back on track here, for the most part, the cast was damn near perfect. Yes, that is the one thing I will say about each of the characters, whether it's a superhero character, a sidekick character, or even just a supporting like police detective or, random ally to the group. The casting was always on point for me watching that show. I never felt that any part was miscast. Every part was just, that's who I would have chosen. That's who I picture now when I think of these characters. So, the stunts were amazing. Yes, we did talk about that Stephen Amell did most of his own stunt work where he was legally allowed to do so. And it shows. It's... And honestly, it really was a game changer when it comes to superhero TV. It showed that a TV series can really excel at creating a superhero universe. The whole crossover thing, I did enjoy it, but I get the issues with watching them in order. Yeah, that is kind of my thing. Like back when they first aired, and you got to see the whole crossover event unfold as it was naturally meant to happen. It was such a, I can't wait for the next episode kind of feeling.
Like you had to, with that, because you had to watch an episode of Arrow and then something to do with Flash?
Yeah, we did talk about this in the episode, Jimmy. Basically, when it was shown on over here on Sky TV on Tuesday nights, it was Arrow.
And then
when you got the crossover events, it would start with an Arrow episode. Then Flash was Tuesday, Legends was Wednesday, Supergirl was Thursdays.
You're basically watching 3 seasons, effectively.
Yeah, that was kind of the idea set up with the Arrow. With tangent people here, Jimmy really should have done his homework on this one. Basically, the Arrowverse started with Arrow up to its 3rd season. Then the Flash happened, but then from the Flash, Legends of Tomorrow spun off.
Right, I heard about the war coming out, but as I said, as I've said many times, I'm not the greatest DC fan, so I never really followed it.
Supergirl was set up as its own show and then brought into the Arrowverse by the Flash jumping across universes and stuff. And then eventually they brought it all together as one amalgamated universe, kind of a bit like they did with the New 52 in the comic books. There is precedence for it. But anyway, getting off track.
Back on track.
Yeah. But when they originally aired, you could follow the story perfectly because each show aired one night after the other. But when you go back now and try to watch it on a streaming service, you have to get all those shows lined up. So it's a bit like the MCU. You have to kind of know what each one's doing.
Yeah, it's a bit. Yeah, I'm finding that. I think that's part of the reason because I haven't watched the back end of the MCU properly. Yeah. So there was things in Endgame like
tangenting here a little bit.
Tangenting a little bit. Yeah, I get you.
I do have one more tangent to go on here. Mentioning the MCU, around about the time that Arrow was doing its thing on TV and building the Arrowverse, it was slowly branching out and opening up a bit. The MCU, God bless them, was still fairly in its early days. I think we were like post Age of Ultron in 2012.
Right. Yeah.
And they'd tried to do an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV series. I don't know if you've ever watched that. I watched all 7 seasons. It got a bit weird toward
the end. I heard that. And then it got
dealing with time travel and alternate dimensions and alternate realities and stuff. And this was before the MCU had even introduced the multiverse. So it was very, very confusing towards the end. But the one thing I will say is I enjoyed Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for what it was. But when comparing it to a show like Arrow at the time, the one thing I always said was Marvel and DC, because this was always the talk down, like, the local watering hole and stuff was, you're a Marvel or you're a DC? And I'm like, do you know what? I'm both. Because for me, and this is the way I looked at it back then, and I do kind of still hold this view a little bit. The DC stuff that was coming out in the 2010s-ish era, the movies weren't doing so great. Suicide Squad flopped. Batman vs. Superman had to have 2 different cuts, and both of them were not great. Justice League was Justice League. They had released the Snyder cut of that to fix everything. So, I mean, the DCEU at that time was not doing great. But the MCU was fucking blowing up. Movie after movie after movie after movie, character after character, team after team was introduced. It was just going, everyone was mad for the Marvel films. DC, not so much. But when it came to TV shows, DC for me were fucking killing it. Arrow, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, Constantine, Swamp Thing. All of these shows for me were knocking it out of the park because they had that longer time to tell a story. But
I remember reading Tangent. It's like everything to do with the films on the MCU were doing great.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
shows weren't so good, and DC's TV shows were great, but their films were flopping.
Yeah, but with Marvel, their TV shows at that time, and I think you could still say a little bit even now, were flagging. They weren't. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was behind in the ratings every damn time, I do believe. So for me, when it comes to comic book shows, I would rather go with the DC shows like Arrow because they took their time. They took 3 seasons to introduce the Flash, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
And that went on and did 8 seasons, same as Arrow. Supergirl went on and did many seasons. Legends of Tomorrow did multiple freaking seasons. That one was a little bit hit and miss, I will admit, but it was still very good. Anyway, back to the comment section. We got to get this done. Talking about the Flash, JK does actually go on to say, the Flash was the standout spin-off, but Superman and Lois was the most consistent spin-off in terms of quality of story. I enjoyed Legends of Tomorrow, but I never finished the series. And the same with Supergirl. Again, never finished the series. Black Lightning was pretty good. I had that on my watch list, and I never got around to watching it, unfortunately. I think it was because by the time it had finished its run, I didn't have Netflix, so it was meant going back and binge watching like a whole box set of a show I knew very little about. So I chose not to. Anyway, and again, never finished. And finally, Batwoman. That was probably my least favorite spin-off. Never started the second season. The pronunciation of Manu Bennett was correct. Thank you, JK. That's put my mind at rest. But yeah, Batwoman, I never even fucking bothered with that.
No, I heard lots of bad reviews about that. And then I think it only got, 2 seasons and cancelled or something?
Two seasons, and they changed actresses for Batwoman mid-season 1, I think, or at the end of season 1.
I remember here, it's like, again, it was at that point, I was trying to find shows to be interested
Rolling on.
dropped a lot of them.
A quick comment from the old Calico Crichton himself, the son of the Pertwee, Mr. Tony Harris of the Retro Movie Zone. Hey guys, just a quickie before I listen to the full episode. Oh, you are naughty. I definitely commented on the last episode, or at least I thought I did. Not sure what happened, but it was quite a lengthy comment, like the week before last. Surely YouTube haven't pulled it. I did go and check the held for section. It was not there. I think what's happened to you there, Tony, is what often happens to Mr. Clifford, is he's dropped a comment and YouTube's just gone, what did you say? Sorry, I wasn't listening.
Yeah, no.
They've lost the comment. So I do apologize for saying that you didn't comment. You clearly did. YouTube went, no, you didn't. It scrumpled it up and threw it in the bin. I didn't see it.
Generally believe anybody who comments on here now that goes, I made a comment, but YouTube have pulled it for whatever reason.
Next up, we have a comment from you, Mr. Clifford. Hello, Scout Eddie and Mouth of the South, west of Derbyshire here. I'm out of lemon Nimoy pies. Seems Guy is serving Battlestar Galactica cocktails. Guy, I'm not angry, just disappointed you haven't played the joy that is Knights of the Old Republic. I would have thought with it being a Star Wars game back in the day, you would have played that, Guy, but
yeah.
Also, Mass Effect PS5 Legendary seems it would be awesome.
Yeah, visually, that seems to be the better running system from what I've heard.
Yes. Alex Cross, Along Came a Spider 93. There are many others, as mentioned, never read the books.
Yeah.
Having never watched Arrow, can't comment much on this. Does sound interesting, though, and great watching this episode despite my lack of knowledge. Go and get it watched, Jimmy. It's worth it.
As
long as I don't have to revisit EastEnders, I might try this one. No, that was just a joke that Colin Salmon was in both.
Yeah, I noticed that. I don't have to rewatch that.
Although Calista knows my thoughts on cliffhangers. Yes, I do. Looking forward to the next one, signing off. Right. The next comment.
Here I am.
The next comment. Top comment of the week, because he snuck it in a freaking hour ago, Tony, you dirty, cheeky boy.
Well done, Tony. Sneaking in there
at the last minute. I like it when they do, when they slip it in at the last minute. Great episode, guys. I've never seen Arrow, but listening to you talk about it has got me interested enough to check out the first episode. You'll get hooked. It doesn't sound like your everyday superhero series, and that's what appeals to me. I reckon it'll catch on with me, but let's see. Found season 1 on Blu-ray for £4. I beat you, Tony. I bought my season 1 Blu-ray box set for £1.50.
Oh, nice.
CEX in Tamworth when I was dropping my daughter off. I was like, I've got an hour. CEX it, why not? And there it was, just sitting on the shelf. I was like, oh, £1.50. I'll have that.
That's how I get many of my CDs. Charity shops, bargain bins, things like that.
Can't go wrong at that price. Still have no idea what happened with last week's comment. I absolutely 100% posted it, so something weird must have happened. It did, Tony. We just covered it.
I think something did, because I briefly remember seeing him in the comments when I posted mine, and then it's obviously just...
I didn't get a notification. Normally, I get a notification from YouTube itself, and then I get an email saying I have a new comment, and I've not received either. So that's normally what clues me in, is that something's been held. If someone says they've commented and I've not received the email, I check my held for section. And if there's nothing there, then clearly there's been some sort of glitchy poo happen with the YouTube algorithm out there somewhere. So I do apologize if they don't come through. It's not me. I am trying. I'm very fucking trying. Anyway, hopefully this one will reach you safely. It did. Looking forward to next week's episode, guys. And thank you both for so much. Thank you both so much for your unending and constant support for my channel. Means more than you know. Mwah. Thank you, Tony. And the same goes back to you, honey. Like, a lot of our jokes stem from you. Well, so I'm gonna be open and honest about it right now. Like the Calico Crichton stuff, the Son of the Pertwee stuff. A lot of it's aimed at your shiny head, my friend, and we love you for it.
Yeah. Although I don't always catch your videos, I've been having a lot of trouble trying to catch up on the videos. I do go in the Retro Movie Zone Facebook, and yeah, that's always good.
That is it for the shout outs. We're going to very quickly cover what you've been watching, mate. I will go first. For me, just over the last 24 hours, due to Guy informing me of illness. I very quickly had to cram, like the night before GCSEs when I was at high school. I very quickly had to cram as many episodes of tonight's subject matter in as I could. So I have been watching Gargoyles because we're finally getting to cover it. Finally, 5 seasons in, and I'm finally getting to talk about my favorite fucking show ever. Right.
Folks, she's going to do a lot of talking. As I say, I'm unscheduled here. And this is probably the shortest what you've been watching, mate. Because I too have not had time to watch anything other than the last night's cram-worthy, getting up through all of season 1 and part of season 2, Gargoyles. So that's what I've been watching.
There we go then. So that's it.
Moving forward to the meat of the matter.
Yes, getting into the meat and the potatoes of the episode. Gargoyles, an animated series from Disney, originally aired in their afternoon Disney cartoon block, which ran from October 24th, 1994 until February 15th, 1997. There were some heartbreaks day after Valentine's Day thanks to this show. I was one of them. It ran for 3 seasons, consisting of a total of 78 episodes. And I do believe season 1 and season 3 are both 13 episodes apiece. And season 2 is 52 episodes, making up the bulk of the show, but with good reason, because it's got a lot of storytelling to get through. So we're going to jump in and cover the basic premise first. The basic premise of Gargoyles is in the year 994 AD, a group of humans are living in a castle called Wevern Castle out in the Scottish Highlands. It's about to be sacked by a band of Vikings as night is about to fall. As the night falls and the Vikings are laying siege to the castle, the stone gargoyles come to life, kick the ever-loving crap out of the Vikings, and defend the castle. And it sets up the premise that by nighttime, gargoyles are flesh and blood like the rest of us. And during the day, they are stone statues defending castles and whatnot. Due to a series of events that I won't spoil too much here, because again, like we say with all of these episodes, we're doing these to encourage people to go and watch them if you've never seen them. So please don't kind of, but you didn't mention this. I didn't mention it because you should go and watch it. And if you're mentioning it, it means you've watched it. So you know what I'm talking about already. Thank you. Anyway, moving on. Due to some misadventures and some betrayal and some treachery and some quite dark storytelling.
Though it's a child's program, it is a rather dark one.
You know what, right? Even now, the one bit that still surprises me is in episode 1 when Goliath first comes out of the stone.
Yeah.
The Viking goes to hit him with a sword. He grabs it, and you just see that little tiny bit of blood, and it's only a tiny bit.
Tiny
blood trickles down his hand, and
in a Disney cartoon back in 1994
that was aimed at like 10 to 13-year-olds. You know, this was like quite grown-up stuff. It was a very dark adult. Yeah. It was more. I always found watching Gargoyles. It was more 14 to 16-year-olds.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, if you do the research and everything, its demographic was 10 to 13-year-olds. That's why they had a toy line and everything for it.
Yeah, that's exactly what they had a toy line.
For not a full adult audience or even an 18-year-old audience, but mid-teens, 14 to 16. I always felt it was very much that. But anyway, due to some misadventures and betrayals, they are turned to stone. And the crux of the spell that is used to turn them into stone permanently has a little caveat.
Permanently.
Yes. If the castle should, however, rise above the clouds themselves, the spell would be broken and the gargoyles would awake from their stone sleep. You flash forward to the year 1994 AD. Enter a multi-triple 10 times over billionaire, makes Donald Trump look like a fucking pauper type rich.
Makes Elon Musk look average.
Yes, but then again...
Especially with the amount of damage the thing takes throughout the series, but continuing.
Yeah, anyway, He stumbles upon this legend in a book, and he wonders if it's true. So he transports the entire castle from Scotland over to Manhattan and sets it atop a giant skyscraper so that the castle has risen above the clouds. And sure enough, the spell breaks, the gargoyles awake. They're in the modern, I say modern, at the time this was made, modern day. And it's kind of, it starts off, season 1 is very much fish out of water kind of story. Like, they're in a time they don't know. They're surrounded by people they don't know. There's even more betrayal from other characters. Again, trying not to spoil too much here. But it sets itself up very early on to have this nice blend of science fiction and fantasy. It has a lot of Shakespearean stories. It has a lot of Arthurian legend thrown into there. It mentions Oberon and his children, which, if you know your Shakespeare, that's all A Midsummer Night's Dream. So there's all this stuff going on within Gargoyles that at first glance, you might not really be like, oh, this is a kid's show. It's not. No. Go into...
Not really. Surprisingly, a kid's show is the best. Surprisingly, this is a kid's show.
Some of the themes,
the adults would definitely.
Some of the themes that the show. I mean, okay, we'll jump into this now. Themes of the show. One of the biggest themes of this show is racism. I will say it openly and clearly. I don't care what YouTube makes of it, right? But the underlying theme of Gargoyles was racism and acceptance. And all you have to do is look at a character like Demona.
Yeah.
Primarily a villain of the show. For me, one of the greatest characters of the show. We'll get into the characters in a little bit. I'm working my way up to this.
There's a lot to cover there.
There is. There fucking is. But the way she puts across, and it's one of my favorite lines, and I often find the clip and watch it back on YouTube quite regularly. And it's where she's talking to Brooklyn about humans. And she shows him different things of humanity. And there's this one bit where there's a dead body with a blanket over it on the floor, and there's like a gun lying somewhere. And it's like, this is a kid show. You have to keep telling yourself, this is a kid show. And the one line that really struck out with me, even back in the day when I was, a younger human, is she shows Brooklyn two parents arguing about their child.
Yeah.
And they're throwing things and smashing things, and the child runs out and the child's crying. And Demona turns around to me and she says, humans can't even share their own homes with each other. What makes you think that they would share this world with us? And that line for someone like myself resonates so deep. I'm not going to lie. Even back then when I knew, I'm not going to get too much into this, but when I knew, even back then watching this show, that one line resonated with me because it's like, humans hate what's different.
They do.
And the show does a wonderful, wonderful job of weaving this in with the gargoyles, and they just want to be accepted. They just want to almost hold up a mirror to 2025.
Over here, do our thing, and just leave us alone. If you need some help, come and bother us.
Almost like a prediction to today's kind of societal structure, where a lot of people say, do you know what we want? Do you know what we actually want out of life? Do you know what our agenda is? To live, to be, to exist. And that is the whole theme of Gargoyles. They just want to exist. And again, this ties into a lot of animation shows that were out at the time, X-Men in specific.
X-Men being one of the big ones.
That whole, the Gargoyles, even though humanity hates them and fears them and hunts them, and there's even a small group of humanity that want to wipe them out, to commit genocide of a species, they still stand up and fight to protect the innocent people of the world. And that's, to me, the mark of a good animated show like this. X-Men, Batman, Spider-Man, Gargoyles, all these shows kind of had that tinge to it of, just because people don't like you doesn't mean you have to be like them.
Yeah.
You know, these horrible, nasty people, just because they're like that to you, doesn't mean you should you can turn out like that.
It also sort of covers the idea and theme that, okay, you're different, you've got your views and your opinion, I've got my differences and my opinion, but we can work this out. But you go and do that over there, I'll do this over there. Let's just agree to disagree, and we'll just carry on and not bother with each other.
But moving on, the story does progress through, like you said, through 3 seasons. Now, the one issue that concerns a lot of fans, and I get where they're coming from, but I'm going to talk about this because it was brought up in a previous episode when we had some certain guests on. I'll get to it. But season 3 kind of divided the fans because season 3 became known as the Goliath Chronicles.
Yes.
A lot of fans don't actually consider season 3 as canon because there was a comic book series that picked up on the events set up at the end of season 2 and then carried it on. And the reason why, I'm going to get into this a little bit because I do know about this. Basically, Disney saw the success of Gargoyles, but they heard the mumblings and moanings of parents' rights groups back in the day, which I suppose by today's standards would be a bit snowflakey, right?
Yeah,
they were concerned. They were concerned that a show aimed at children was a bit too grown up. So Disney, and rather than go, okay, we're going to continue on with the tone of the show, but we're going to show it later on in the day.
Yeah. Or change the demographic to teenagers.
We're going to market it more. No. What they did, they went, okay, yes, we hear you. We bow down. We'll simplify the show. So it went from a season-long overarching story to a very villain of the week with 1 or 2 little overarching bits that bounced from episode to episode.
Yeah.
It didn't really amount to much. Now, I spoke to the Lowells about this during our X-Men interview about 2 years ago. We interviewed them. And even they admitted that a lot of fans didn't like the work they did on the show. Now, me as a fan, excuse me, I have wind.
Excuse you.
Excuse me. Me as a fan, I liked season 3. I was young, you know. I wasn't quite fully formed in the brain of multi-layered storytelling and all that kind of stuff. You know, I didn't really. I just liked watching these characters and seeing these stories unfold. But season 3 did have some really good episodes, and the way it ended as well. I'm not going to spoil it for those who want to get through the TV series, but the way it ended for me was a very, very good ending because it was like. We didn't know it was the ending at the time, but look, in retrospect, even now when I watch that ending back, I'm like, I'm not heartbroken, but neither am I like, yay! I'm just more like, oh. So, but yeah, there was a comic book series that continued on. There is even now a comic book series still coming out. There have been several plans over the years to make a live action film. The latest news we heard from Disney, I think, which was about a year or so ago, was that they are doing a live action film with Kenneth Branagh lined up to direct. Yeah. The other thing that I read online just yesterday, and I was like, oh, I missed that bit of news. In October of 2023, it was announced that Disney are rebooting Gargoyles.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually say in what manner that means, whether that means reboot as in the live action movie is going to restart the story from scratch, or, and this is my fingers crossed, pray to the universe, hope Disney do this. Given the fact that X-Men 97, a continuation of the original X-Men, the original 90s show,
but the pick up
has done so damn well. I hope that Disney go, hold on a minute, we can get nostalgia here. I really hope, because there was hints in that X-Men 97 that they were going to do a spin-off and do a Spider-Man 97, continuing what was a cliffhanger back then. I really hope that they kind of learn from this and go, do you know what? Let's give the fans what they wanted. Let's go back to the end of season 2, recap events, do a whole new show. And because it's animated, bring back as many of the voice cast as you can, like you did with X-Men. Now, we know some of them are no longer around.
Yeah, they are definitely so.
But for those that are and are willing to come back, please, 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 Disney, do a continuation. Do kind of maybe adapt that comic book into an animated series and say you wanted us to change season 3. Okay, here's the official season 3. Yeah. Gargoyles 97.
Mm.
You know, do something
effectively,
like that. You know, don't reboot it. Just give us long time standing fans that continuation, because much like it's done with X-Men 97, new fans will get brought in because it's this new show that they're not. I don't know. I didn't watch the original.
I don't know.
They'll go back and watch the original. Do that with it. Do that with it. But right, rolling this stone train along a little bit quickly, we're going to get into characters and voice cast, because this is going to be the biggest chunk of the show tonight.
I think this is going to be the biggest chunk, and there's a lot of crossover here.
Right. We're going to go with the main Gargoyles and humans first, because I have the Wikipedia bit. I said to Jimmy earlier, I was going to jot down notable ones.
I literally agreed for friends and had a quick peruse of that, and I was like, "Yep, there's no way you can just jot this down."
Exactly. So I have it up. All information is done via online sources, mainly Wikipedia. So don't sue me. But anyway, up first, and this is how they're listed on here. I'm reading them out as listed. We have Tom Adcock Hernandez as Lexington. One of my favorite characters. Not my favorite, but I just love the weird little geeky. Yeah. I love the weird little geeky types who love technology. Donatello from the Turtles, loved him for that. Lexington is basically this show's version of Donatello. Ed Asner as Hudson, the late great Ed Asner as Hudson, the grumpy, crotchety old gargoyle, who I do actually have the action figure of from the Kenner toy line from the 1990s. The whole idea is you put his arm forward, you squeeze his legs, and
there you go.
Yes, that is
the only gargoyle who actually wields a sword, an actual weapon.
Yes, and little bit of trivia I know. If you watch closely throughout the series, when he holds his sword up, when he turns into stone, the sword becomes stone as well. Yeah. And there's one episode in season 2 where that is used as a hint, because there's one night the gargoyles all wake up, but Hudson does not. They think he's passed in his sleep.
Oh no.
Again, grown-up storyline for a kid's show. They make it look like Grandpa died in his sleep. But it's not pointed out. But if you watch the animation carefully, when they're picking up and like moving his body,
statuesque figure,
he's holding the sword, but the sword's glinting metal. The sword's still metal.
Right.
As a kid, I picked up on that and I went, "Wait a minute,
doesn't that be stone?
That normally turns to stone, like their clothes, like their clothes and their jewelry and stuff do."
Yeah. So
why is that not? That's not Hudson. 5 minutes later into the episode, it's revealed it's not fucking Hudson. I was like, I fucking knew it. So I love that little bit of visual storytelling. But anyway, moving on. Yes, Hudson. Bridget Bacco as Angela, the biological daughter of Goliath and Demona. Again, we'll get more into that in a little minute. Keith motherfucking David. This guy's popping up a lot this season.
Him and there's another one, and I'll know it when you say
we'll get to it.
They've got stupid amount of voice credits. They turn up everywhere.
Yeah, but Keith motherfucking David as Goliath, Thaylog, and a little side character, Officer Morgan. It's an animated show. A lot of voice actors will play double, sometimes triple duty to voice the world out. But yes,
Goliath. The two characters voiced by the same guy are interacting. I can only imagine how they would do that.
But Goliath, I do have a little Q fig of him up here. It's not to scale with the rest of them. I'm trying to track down more Gargoyles figures, but trying to find them complete loose. No, not happening. But I do have a Goliath up there. My second favorite character, purely because he's the lead of the show. He does have some good stories, some deep moments, some kind of heartbreaking ones as well.
Yeah,
and some classic lines. I think it's in the first 5-part episode they did, which it was originally a movie broken into 5 parts. But the one line that stands out for me is when Harkin and the captain of the guard fall off the cliff, and he stands there and he screams, "I've been denied everything, even my revenge." And it was just like, again, kids show. Fucking kids show. You watch people fall off cliffs and this guy having an emotional breakdown. Like, you know, this was a kids show. This was a kids show. We keep saying that, but
I don't know. You might know. And meanwhile, he's also doing double. I mean, he's going from there to Spawn and back again.
This one up next. It's not my favorite character by a long shot, but it's my favorite voice acting choice. Just because as soon as I hear that voice, I'm like, yes, that matches the character perfectly. But you have, I hope I pronounce his name right, Bill Fergabake.
I believe that's the correct pronunciation. I'm sure somebody will comment.
More modern audiences may know him as Patrick from SpongeBob SquarePants.
Yeah.
He does the voice of Broadway.
Yeah, Broadway. Who's always hungry.
Yes, he's the big rotund character. Hence the name Broadway. He does have one of the best episodes, though. We'll talk about this very quickly while we go through this. But one of my favorite episodes with him, and it was an episode that nearly got the show taken off the air, but they were able to be like, no, this is a gun safety episode. We need to talk.
Yeah, we had that, funnily enough. I watched that with the wife, and
he plays around with Elisa's gun.
And after watching a Western. Just put that into context. He's gone off. He's watched a Western.
It was a detective show because he's got the hat and everything on.
Yeah.
And he accidentally shoots Detective Elisa Marza.
Friendly fire, not so friendly.
And the whole episode is, again, for a kid's show, she's on the floor. She's in a puddle of blood. It's very dark subject matter, and I agree with the writers. The reason why they wanted to get this episode out there was like, guns are an ever-present danger. More and more Americans are having guns on a daily basis. An episode like this, aimed at young children, is teaching them, you don't play with guns.
Yeah. This is not a toy phone.
This is education. Yeah. It needs to be aired. It needs to be seen. And even watching it now, it's a heartbreaking episode. Yeah. Like when he thinks that he's killed her.
Because I remember in that as well, the character, he unfortunately shoots. The dog comes out. She's managed to get this far. She survived 10 hours worth of operation. You know, things have been going on. She's survived 10 hours worth of operation.
Right. Moving on, Jonathan Frakes as David Xanatos, the aforementioned richer than Trump and Elon Musk combined type billionaire. Starts off as a bad guy. Well, ally pretending to be on their side. Then he becomes an enemy for a good long while. Then in the arse end of season 2, going into season 3, he becomes basically like the protector to the Gargoyles. He goes through a full redemption arc. Again, kid show. Up next, we have Sally Richardson as Elisa Marza. Human detective allied to the characters, the only character that the Gargoyles trust to a certain extent. Only human that they really trust. And and even now, this is kind of are you sure you can get away with this on a kid's show? There was a love story that built up between her and Goliath.
Yeah.
And it's like
I saw that. I'm starting to see this as I'm having to rewatch it. So, folks, I haven't
wait until you get to the Halloween. They did a Halloween episode where, because it's Halloween, the Gargoyles actually go out in public.
Yeah, because they can get away with it. It's a costume.
And they, again, because this was Disney, and I love this little touch, right? They had Elisa dress up in the ball gown from Beauty and the Beast, Belle's ball gown, the big orange, the big yellow, golden, shiny one. They had her dressed up as that. So she was walking with Goliath, and they're walking linked arms and everything. And again, for an animated show, watching it back as an adult, this is like, oh, they get their little woman. Like, oh, you can tell that. I think if it had ran for a more structured season 3, where it carried on the events of season 2, I definitely think to push the boundaries, we would have seen more of that. And hell, I think in the comic books, it is even brought up about how technically it's interspeciality, and it's like, you're not wrong, but I loved it.
If it works, it works.
I love those moments between them. Seriously, there's music videos and stuff you can watch online about their partnership, and some of them are so good. Anyway, on to the next main-ish character. We have Marina Sirtis as Demona, my number 1 favorite character. Again, I have a minifig of her up here out of the way.
You know her sister, though.
Pardon?
You know her sister, the Screamer. Thank you, Raven Rose.
Anyway, she was my favorite character in the show growing up.
She's a good character, though.
Even my favorite character to this day, because like I said a little bit earlier, to me, she's got quite possibly the best story arc, because she's a villain. She's a tragic villain, and she's an understandable villain because, and again, I've watched a lot of YouTube videos. I watched so many videos that kind of dissect the ins and outs of what she's like as a character and a complicated villain. She's a complicated villain. And one video that I watched, I can't remember the name of the channel or anything. I watched it years ago, but they brought up the thought and the idea that if you look at the events of Demona's life that have led her to have a hatred for humanity,
it's understandable.
A lot of it she brought on herself, because she thought it was her paranoia. She thought she was going to betray, so she betrayed them first. She herself, because of her own paranoia, pushed humanity further and further away until...
It actually reinforces her mentality, and it's like that psychological gap you can't get out.
There's one episode that to this day makes me cry at the end of the episode, because the weird sisters of Shakespearean lore, the 3 sisters that cancel Macbeth. Macbeth is a fucking character in this show.
Macbeth is a literal named character, folks.
Right. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in just a minute, right? But she's stopped by the 3 sisters in this plan that she's done. I'm going to say the plan. She's got this bomb. There's something that's going to happen, but basically, if she doesn't enter a password, humanity is doomed, right? And the 3 sisters intervene and they talk to her. And they show her these events, and they get into her head of like, you are your own worst enemy kind of thing. And when someone asks her what is the password to disarm the bomb, she lowers her head and she very quietly says, "Alone," and a tear rolls down her cheek. And if you've watched the show up to that point, you get why she feels that way. Again, not trying to give spoilers here, let people discover it on their own. But when you get to that episode, if you followed that character and, seen everything she's been through up to that point, you get it why she would feel alone. And why that loneliness has driven her to I don't want to say the brink of sanity, because she's not insane. She's more just hurt and angry and broken by everything she's had to endure. And then she sees the other gargoyles and they just everything's sailing along. She's on the outside looking through it, looking back in. And again, one of my favorite characters. And then we have, last but not least, of course, it's a kid's cartoon from the 90s. So, of course, this name is going to pop up in the credits somewhere. Frank Welker as Bronx, the dog-like gargoyle, which was one of my, not favorite, but one of my most loved characters when I was a kid.
That dog is a lovable character.
I had the toy. It was literally a solid block with like slightly moving legs and a jaw that went, blah, 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 blah. That was it. And it came with like a chicken leg that he could chew on, and that was it. That was the whole toy. And because he had no wings, that was it. He had
He's
no
the only,
wings.
that's another thing. He's
He
the only
came with a
gargoyle,
backpack.
and
He
he's
came with a
got
backpack
zero.
that had gliding wings on it because he was a gargoyle without wings.
He's the only one without wings. He's literally a dog.
And
That causes problems.
Don't question how that works. Don't question how that works. How come if they're gargoyles and they can talk and walk and have wings and stuff, and he's a gargoyle, why is he more like a dog? Okay, then answer me this question. Why is Goofy and Pluto both dogs, yet one wears clothes and talk, the other one behaves like a dog? Answer me that question before you ask me yours. Anyway, rolling on, we have reoccurring cast. I'm not going to go through everyone because I'll be here all night. I'm just going to go through the ones that I know, the cast people that I spot and I go, I know you. Right, up first we have Xander Berkeley as Cold Steel. Now, that name may not mean anything to a lot of people, but to me, it is Trevor from the Candyman. So, next up as Harkin, Wool, and Wolf. Two characters, it gets explained. But this, one of my favorites, my favorite over 50 crush. You're allowed one.
Yeah.
The man that is Clancy Brown.
Some people might know his more recent work in Detroit. Human.
Yes, but I know him from Highlander and Gargoyles, and he just has a voice that just melts my heart and other certain body parts, but I'm not going into that.
Yeah, we don't need that.
Tim Curry as Anton.
Tim. That was one when I went to Tim fucking Curry.
Yes, Anton Savarius is a geneticist and scientist. Makes a reoccurring comeback throughout all 3 seasons. Michael Dorn as Coldstone. I didn't know this one until looking this up. Sheena Easton. Yeah. Sheena Easton, the singer, her.
Yeah. I'm thankful you confirmed that. I was like, hang on, is that who that is who I think it is then?
Her most notable role in the show was as Robin Canmore, Robin Corey, which was part of the hunters who were hunting down gargoyles. Again, watch the show, that'll get explained. Matt Fewer, the dad from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the next door neighbor, the one who gets the dart stuck to his forehead.
Yeah.
Yep, he's there.
He's in there.
Yep. Oh, sorry, itchy neck. Up next, Kate Mulgrew as Titana, Captain Janeway herself, Star Trek again. Funny that, isn't it? We're going to get to that.
A lot of crossovers.
We're going to get to that. Up next, Nichelle Nichols, another Star
Nichelle
Trek.
Nichols, yes.
Uhura. Now, this name may only be noticeable to a few people. I know this name because she's a wonderful, she's a wonderful actress, CCH Pounder. A lot of people know her as Amanda Waller from the DCAU before she got replaced. But she plays Cold Fire, which we'll get to that. Oh, actually, mentioning Cold Stone and Michael Dorn, I completely forgot. Toy time again.
Toy time.
Cold Stone. Here.
Cold Stone. And it is, it's the one, it's the metal wing variant. Not
yes. In the chest piece there's actually a spin wheel that has the 3 different personalities because Cold Stone, Cold Steel, and Cold Fire are our actually personalities in this one.
Yeah. For those, again, this is a kid show, and effectively this character is Frankenstein's monster.
Yes, with multiple personalities, because if you press a button on his back, that actually spins around to change it to one of the other personalities. And again, trivia time. In the script, the characters were referred to as Desdemona, Othello, and Iago because that's what their story was basically
encapsulating.
Yeah, it was. It was meant to be that story of Othello. And again, go watch it. There's so much Shakespearean stuff is sprinkled throughout the show. It's fantastic. But up next, talking names, Macbeth. We mentioned him again. We're not going to explain why he's a couple of 100 years old and he's in the show. We're not going to explain that, but
go watch it.
He was voiced by Gimli and Leonardo da Vinci himself, John Rhys Davis. Yes, he popped up in this.
I saw that now. Hang on. Again.
Another notable voice acting is from Mr. Data, Brent Spiner. as Puck, the mischievous god from, again, Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. He lives in a mirror. Go and watch this show, everyone. If this isn't selling it for you, it really should be.
Like the voice cast alone should just go. I mean, go and watch
these last two really did kind of make. I was like, oh, okay. The Archmage, big bad guy in season what? A major bad guy in season 2, was voiced by the brilliant David Warner.
Yeah.
Now, people must know that name. David Warner has been in, oh, God knows how many fucking films at this point. If you don't know the name,
places he gets about.
But this one kind of made me go, shit! I knew that voice. All those years, I never knew it was him, but now I know. As Detective Matt Bluestone, the partner to Detective Elisa Marza, comes into it in season 2, I do believe, is voiced by Biff Tanner himself, Tom F. Wilson. That one really shocked me because I was like, all those years ago watching it as a kid, I was like, I know that voice. I know that voice. I know that voice. Now I know why.
Biff?
Yes. Yeah.
Not playing the bully character from Back to the Future.
Now we get on to guest stars because that was just reoccurring cast. This was people who voiced
cast bags. This is going to be the bulk.
This one was my favorite because some of these names made me smile. You have Uncle Phil, the Shredder himself, James Avery Sr. as the shaman, a one-off appearance.
Yeah.
Lovely, lovely hearing his voice. I mean, Uncle Phil. Need I say more? Up next, LeVar Burton as yes, LeVar.
The man with the hair.
Alan Cumming. Alan Cumming was in an episode. Sarah Douglas of Superman 2 fame did an episode. Now this one, right? This one bugs me because I look at the name and I can't place the name, but I look at the face and I know I've seen him in stuff.
Go on.
Dorian Harewood. Looking at the picture, that I know I've seen something with you in it.
I think because I don't have the Wikipedia, folks, my laptop can only run this, and my phone's on the blink, so I can't look it up. If I remember rightly, I know his face too, but I can't place where I've seen him.
Yeah. Anyway, Tony J.
Get back to us in the comments.
Now, Tony J did a lot of voice acting work. He has done on-screen stuff, but for me personally, I know him as the Elder God from the Legacy of Kain series of video games. And that voice, when he says, Raziel, you are worthy, every time I hear that, I get a shiver down my spine because his voice is just so amazing.
He's like butter for you.
Little bit. The next one up, again, Star Trek, Colm Meaney.
Chief O'Brien.
Yes. Another one that may surprise people is Roddy McDowall.
Yeah.
Very, very late voice performance for Mr. McDowall because he was very old at that point and he was not a well man at that time. Up next, this name you may not know, but the voice you will. Rob Paulson, better known to us 90s kids as the Pinky and the Brain. The Pinky and the Brain. One is a genius, the other can't sing anymore because we'll get demonetized.
Yeah. Demonetized.
Yes, demonetized. I wouldn't mind. Anyway. Right now, this gets onto the what I wanted to talk about earlier when we said, Star Trek. There is a big connection between this show and Star Trek, especially Star Trek The Next Generation, because there was a lot of actors from that show that came over to do voices on Gargoyles, but then conversely, there are people who were on Gargoyles who then went over to do little bit parts in Star Trek.
Because there's one name you haven't mentioned that I know that's in that list. Avery Brooks.
Oh, yes.
Benjamin Sisko.
Yes, Avery.
I believe he started there.
Yes, I skipped over that one. I missed that one. I do apologize. But yes, Avery Brooks is listed. He played Nakar which I'm not sure what that character is. If it's the one I'm thinking of, it's the alien on Easter. On the Easter Island where they got the head statues.
Yeah, and I believe it's about the same time. I don't know. Don't quote me. I'd have to look, but I think he started with Gargoyles, got with the other guys, Colmini and the rest, and they went, "Come on over here. Let's try it for."
There is a little bit
about the same time.
That, but let me get to it. Let me get to it. So okay. So as we said, we talked about a lot of these, but the names listed here, a number of voice actors for the show were starring actors in various Star Trek series, and this is it in order. Marina Sirtis, Jonathan Frakes, Kate Mulgrew, Michael Dorn, Brent Spiner, LeVar Burton, Cole Meady, Avery Brooks, Nichelle Nichols. But then flipping it back the other way, so the people who appeared on Gargoyles also appeared on Star Trek, either before, after, or around about the same time.
Appearances.
Yes. Sally.
Which Star Trek has many?
Sally Richardson played Nadell in Second Sight, John Rhys Davis, Leonardo da Vinci on Star Trek Voyager multiple times.
Yeah.
Frank Welker, this one could be, I was like, right, voices of Spock screaming in Star Trek 3 and the alien creature in Nothing Human.
Yeah. I think when he says Spock screaming in Star Trek 3, I think that's when it's the younger Spock, because it's the Genesis planet. In that he goes, there's several screens, but I don't think Lemon Nimoy did the screams.
Yeah,
he did.
He couldn't squeak one out. Clancy Brown, Zorbell in Desert Crossing, Matt Fewer, Berlingoff Rouse Masoon in A Matter of Time, James Sato, Lieutenant Nogami in The 37s. I think that's a Voyager episode.
I think that's the one where they find all the people that were abducted by aliens.
Voyager. It's a Voyager episode. W. Morgan Shepherd, Ira Graves in The Schizoid Man, Kutai in Bliss, the Klingon warden in Star Trek The Undiscovered Country, and
he's the one who leads them out.
Star Trek film. Michael Bell, Zorn in Encounter at Farpoint, Borat in The Homecoming, and Dorotho Awa in The Marquis. Garrett Graham, Hunter in Captive Pursuit, and Quinn in Death Wish. Oh, him, Garrett Graham. I missed that name off the list. Sorry. David Warner, St. John Talbot in Star Trek V, The Final Voyage. In Star Trek 6, and Mad Red in Chain of Command.
Yes.
Dietrich Bader in Tactical Officer in The Emissary. Robert Ito, Lieutenant Chang in Coming of Age, and John Kim in Author. Clyde Kusatsu, Vice Admiral Nakamura on The Next Generation. It just says The Next Generation, so I'm guessing that's recurring role. Paul Winfield, Clark Terrell in Star Trek 2, and Dathon in Darmok. Tony J, Minister Capino in Cost of Living, and James L. Avery Sr., General Kovac in Affliction. And it says here, Patrick Stewart, Jean-Luc Picard on The Next Generation, was also considered for a role in the series. I do believe he was approached to play Oberon originally.
I believe so.
But his representation turned down the offer because his usual fees could not be met. From my understanding of it, this was mid-season 2, so it would have been 95, 96. Patrick Stewart was in the height of the next-gen movies at that point. I think First Contact had just come out and Insurrection was being filmed.
Yeah, somewhere around that.
So he was busy and therefore expensive. And for
he was basically busy boy, and at that time was quite expensive for that. I mean, he could. I don't think Jonathan Frakes or Marina Sirtis could have got the. Can you do us a favor?
But it goes on to say here, producer Greg Wiseman has commented that at first the casting of multiple Star Trek actors was unintentional. I think it was just that'd be a good.
Yeah. We just need a voice.
Marina Sirtis and Jonathan Frakes were both cast in prominent roles, and quickly the show's staff began to think of other Star Trek actors when casting new roles. Frakes and Sirtis were also instrumental in talking up the Gargoyles series to fellow Star Trek cast members and encouraging them to participate. This Star Trek connection was given a nod to by scriptwriters in at least one instance within the cartoon. In the episode Her Brother's Keeper, season 1, episode 12, so you may have just watched this one, Brooklyn remarks, yeah, you and what Starfleet? So, yes, that's the Star Trek connection with the Gargoyles covered. I'm going to take my glasses off because I am sick of having to move my head constantly because of the glare from this screen. I need to reposition my cameras and stuff. But, yeah, so that, ladies and gentlemen, is Gargoyles. I did my eyes nice blue and purple to match the Mona tonight.
The voice cast alone, folks, should get you in. Because the voices in something different is always great, especially when you're playing. I know that.
Do you know what? You could turn it into a drinking game of every time you have a Star Trek character, Star Trek actor.
Take a drink. Yeah.
3 episodes.
I feel like with the live action, maybe they do some wink, nods to it.
Do you know what? Right, there's been rumors about live action stuff since about 2009.
Yeah.
That was in backtracking. That's kind of as far back as earliest rumors go. Jordan Peele of Get Out fame works with Blumhouse and all that lot. Apparently, he did approach Disney, but the one thing that got me is they didn't flat out say no. They just said, not at this moment.
Yeah.
Which led a lot of fans to go, oh, they're working on something. And then a few months later, the toy company NECA announces that they're bringing out new action figures. Yeah. And then the TV series hits the streaming services. And I'm like, you've got to think this is Disney testing the waters.
Yeah.
How much response that those action figures and that TV series re-release, dropping on streaming services gets, for them is like, if we get enough response, we'll bring it back.
We'll bring it back.
And I think they should. I think this isn't.
I mean, when I was.
One.
Oh, sorry. When I was reading the Wikipedia, you obviously mentioned that they did all the comics and that. Mm-hmm. But in there, one of the lead guys, Weissman, who is, I believe, the director, he doesn't get a penny or nothing from this, even though it's on Disney Plus. And apparently, he doesn't get anything for this, folks. And yet, he's got, apparently, according to Wikipedia, I think it's either 135 or a 315-page idea document, like for continuation, basically. He's actually got like, all this stuff and ideas, and he's even quoted to say, I'd love to come back and do more.
And again, I hope that Disney have kind of learned from the X-Men, the success of X-Men 97.
It's like,
the continuation now. I'd prefer that as much as I would love, and I think this is the thing with any 90s cartoon fan, whether it's Batman, Spider-Man, whatever, seeing live action interpretations of these characters, seeing the actors that they pick to take on these roles, that is a dream come true. But I would at this point much prefer a revisit to the original animated series, just because there is such a wealth of stories there with the characters, with everything that was set up, with just
it was dripping more story. There was more to be told.
Yeah, there's so many hanging story threads with stuff that was set up, and I'd love for them to go back to it. Now, with the future of the franchise, we just kind of touched upon it. Would we like to see a live action film? Yes. I watched a fan-made trailer.
In the theme alone.
There was one, I watched a fan-made trailer many, many moons ago, and I loved it because the first thing that made me go, you know what? If they pick that, I'm there for that casting choice.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I forgot his fucking name.
It's got out your head. Technical difficulties, folks. Error 404, page not found.
Yeah, that's exactly what's just happened. Oh, God. What's his name?
What's his name?
Qui-Gon Jinn.
Qui-Gon Jinn. Liam Neeson.
Thank you, Liam Neeson.
Yeah, Liam Neeson, one of the
In
only
this
films
fan-made
I've done.
trailer, they cast Liam Neeson as Xanatos, and I was like, given
Yeah,
the
no, yeah.
little goatee,
Yeah.
his hair, I'm yes,
Yeah.
perfect casting choice.
Although
The
go
casting
even
choice,
better, they could even go meta and get like Frakes to direct a little bit of it. Because he likes his directing these days.
do you know what?
You could go meta instead of doing him Xanatos, have him as a director.
If they do a live action film, let Frakes direct it.
Yeah, he'd do a great job.
Hell, just hand it to the people who did Picard. You want to talk
about one of the Frakes directs quite a few of them.
You want to talk about something that's dripping with nostalgia? Picard season 3.
Hey, Patrick Stewart's probably available for a little bit now.
hey, you sit him in a chair, he could play fucking Hudson.
Yeah. You just have him sat in a chair. You can even go meta with that and say, look, right, why are you doing a portrait of Professor X?
Could have him doing a word search.
Yeah.
4 letters. Team of mutants led by Xavier.
Yeah, because he liked to. I think he was doing. He was always sat in the arms. Hudson being the elder gargoyle, folks. He was the one that ended up. We'll leave him at home. You know, he's getting on a bit.
No, touching upon this, going backwards a little bit here. A brilliant episode I love with Hudson. Again, love the show for this because it teaches a little bit of a lesson. Hudson can't read.
Yeah.
And he's embarrassed by that.
Yeah.
And he actually gets taught to read by a blind man who, in a later episode after he's made friends with him, and he tells him that he's a gargoyle, the guy's like, I knew already. I'm blind, not stupid.
Yeah.
Like, he always knew and he didn't care because the guy wanted to learn to read the most basic of things. Yeah. And it's like, that's a beautiful little thing. And it teaches kids, don't be embarrassed. Again, we're saying this like it's a kid's show and there are little messages in there that are directed straight at the kids.
I like the other Hudson episode. I've seen that one because it's a season 1, late season 1, I think, or it's an early season 2. And that's where the normal structure is Goliath's the one in charge. But they go back to like the 994 period of time.
Oh, yeah, they jump back to 992, 2 years before the event.
Yeah, it's 2 years before. And it's Hudson teaching Goliath. He's at the time.
Having got the scar.
Yeah, it shows
he got his scar. Yes,
and it just shows you, it's like the entire episode. You got Demona going, "You're younger, you're stronger, you should be in charge." With Goliath continually reminding, "Well, no, he's in charge because he's older, and it's a bit of a Spartan mentality. He's older, he's lived this long, and he's surviving. So we need to learn our lessons from him before I take charge."
But yeah, if we haven't talked the show up enough, folks, seriously, if you've never seen Gargoyles, Tony and Guy, and no, I'm not talking about the hairdressers neither. I highly recommend this show.
But we've discussed it's no kids show, not really.
Not really. Once you get into it, I mean, okay, there are these little moments where it's got the comedy and the humor and things like that. And slice of trivia here. Originally, this show was meant to be a comedy show when it first pitched to Disney as a Gummy Bears-like show, level of comedy. But with the success of Batman, the animated series, so
they went and made it darker.
Thank you, DC and Warner Brothers. If it wasn't for you doing your Batman, the animated series, Gargoyles wouldn't have gone, you know what? Let's go the other way with it. Let's go dark.
You've got Batman and X-Men on the TV at the same time as this. They kind of...
One last action figure to show off. We have Brooklyn. Which the idea is he's supposed to keep his mouth snapped shut. There's a button on his back that you're supposed to sort of flick, and he's meant to look like he's roaring, but it more looks like he's just going, hey? If anything, he looks like he's been a little bit 420 friendly.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey man, look at this bong I'm carrying.
But he was a biker. That's the other thing. He did ride the bike at one point.
You know what, right? Again, trivia.
That upset me.
Trivia that I know for this, right? Do you know why that episode was written?
Go on.
Because they made a toy of the bike.
Yeah.
So it had to appear in
one
episode to justify its existence within the toy line. So the writers were like, oh, have we got to do that? Have we now? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. It's in the episode for like 5 minutes before it's blown the fuck up.
What me was
but the brilliant thing about that is the toy company learned they built another thing that was called the Gargoyles Night Flyer, which was basically, Da Vinci's bird mechanic.
Yeah.
It was basically the Gargoyles version of that. Because they did that with the bike toy in that episode.
Yeah.
When it came to try and force the fit the Night Flyer into it, it's like, okay, that helps the Gargoyles fly. They've got wings.
Yeah.
That was when the toy makers went, okay, there's no justification. Okay, we'll just put it in the toy line anyway. So that is actually a toy you can get out there, Gargoyles Night Flyer, which is basically a set of wings for a set of creatures that have a set of wings.
Obviously more useful for
the human type characters, yes.
Or the human type character.
Yes. But if we haven't sold this premise enough to you, folks, please go and check out Gargoyles. I sing this show's praises all the time, even a guy poo-poos all over it. I sing its praises because it is fantastic storytelling. And although it is, a kid's animation, it's very thin with the kids stuff. It's much more grown-up storytelling. You have romances, betrayals, death. It deals with death quite a lot.
It's very Shakespearean.
The Shakespeare stuff is all over Oberon's Children.
All over.
You name it. It's all go. Even King Arthur shows up at one point. They even go to Avalon at some point in the show. This is just. If I cannot sing its praises anymore, then all I will say is please give it a chance. It's on Disney Plus. Go and watch it. And that is it for tonight.
I think that is everything.
Gargoyles in a box, closed, done, locked in my heart forever. Demona, best villain ever, in my opinion. Fight me in the comments. I don't give a shit. Fuck you.
I think that's it, isn't it, though?
I think it is a very good night from us tonight, Jimmy. Yeah,
I think it's a good night from her and a good night from me.
It's a good night from Willie, it's a good night from my Gargoyles, and it's a good night from my lack of giving a shit. But right, we will catch you on the next episode, everyone. I have been that bitch, Calista Valentine. He's been the Motor Mouth, Jimmy Clifford. We'll see you next time. Bye.